Have you ever had one of those months where you swear you didn't do anything out of the ordinary, but your bank account still looks like it got mugged in a dark alley? You open the app, stare at the balance, blink a few times, maybe even refresh the screen because surely that number cannot be correct. But it is. It is painfully correct. And the worst part is, you cannot even point to anything you bought. You did not splurge on a designer bag. You did not go on some wild vacation. You did not buy a new car. You just lived your life. Normal stuff. Groceries, a few meals out, filling up your gas tank, grabbing coffee on the way to work, maybe ordering something small off Amazon because it was only $20. And yet somehow, even though nothing felt expensive, everything added up. Here's the thing that most people never stop to consider. Your big purchases are not what keep you broke. It is not the once every 5 years car you buy or the vacation you take once a year. Those are predictable. You can plan for them. You can save for them. What actually destroys your financial momentum are the tiny, daily, supposedly harmless expenses that feel like nothing in the moment but slowly bleed you dry. And the really dangerous part is that they do not hurt enough for you to notice. If losing $20 felt like losing $2,000, you would pay more attention, but it doesn't. It feels normal. It feels like life. And that is exactly why it keeps winning. Stay with me, because once you understand how this works, you will never look at your spending the same way again. My name is Michael, and I help people understand money the way school never did. No jargon, no lectures, no guilt trips, just the truth about why your financial life feels harder than it should, and what you can do to fix it before you wake up one day wondering where the last 10 years of income went. Point 1. The illusion of harmless spending. Most people have no idea how dangerous their so-called harmless spending actually is, because the problem is never the big purchases that make you pause and think. It is the tiny, mindless ones you barely remember making. You walk into a convenience store because you are a little hungry, or you just want something to break up the day, and you grab a drink, maybe a snack, maybe something extra because it is right there at the counter, and suddenly $10 disappears without you even registering that it happened. You repeat that routine again tomorrow and again the day after because it feels normal, and before you know it, you have quietly burned through $200 in a month on items you could not list, even if someone offered you a reward for remembering. And here is where it gets interesting, because none of these moments feel expensive. They feel like nothing, which tricks your brain into thinking they do not matter. But they do. They matter a lot. The emotional consequence is that you constantly feel like money slips through your fingers, even though you do not recall doing anything wrong. And it is brutally simple. The stuff you forget is exactly the stuff draining you the fastest. Point 2. The lifestyle autopilot trap. Your brain is way too good at normalizing expensive habits, and that is exactly why lifestyle autopilot is so dangerous. Because it does not announce itself with a big dramatic purchase. It sneaks in through tiny conveniences that slowly become your new baseline. You start buying coffee out because your mornings feel chaotic and $6 feels harmless. And at first, it really is just a treat, something you do on the days when you need a little boost. But give it a week and suddenly it is part of the routine, something your brain now expects instead of something you choose. A month passes and you have casually spent more than $120 without blinking. And a year later, those $6 coffees have turned into more than $1,000 of vanished cash, all because your brain quietly decided this was your new normal. Here's where it gets crazy. You never feel the upgrade happening. You only feel the comfort it gives you, so you do not question it. But behind the scenes, every one of these little autopilot habits locks you into higher spending that feels justified simply because it feels familiar. And it is painful. Most people do not upgrade their lifestyle. Their lifestyle quietly upgrades itself and sends them the bill. Point 3. Convenience is becoming the new luxury. Convenience has quietly transformed from something helpful into a full-blown luxury category. And the wild part is, most people do not realize they are paying luxury prices for things that used to be free. You tap a button and your groceries appear at your doorstep. You tap another button and dinner shows up in 30 minutes. You tap one more button and some subscription starts automating a task you could have handled yourself in 60 seconds. And every one of those taps comes with fees, markups, service charges, inflated menu prices, and delivery costs disguised as convenience. It all feels harmless because you are buying time, or at least that is what you tell yourself. But here is where it gets interesting. Half the time, the convenience does not even save you time. It just saves you a small amount of effort you stopped wanting to do because you got used to outsourcing basic tasks. And emotionally, it feels efficient, like you are leveling up your life, staying productive, taking shortcuts. Whatever story you tell yourself to justify it, but your bank account knows the truth. You are not paying for convenience. You are paying for friction you created by refusing to do simple things. And that is the convenience used to help you. Now it quietly empties your wallet while making you feel smarter for letting it. Point 4. Ignoring small price increases costs you big. Companies are absolute experts at raising prices in ways that feel too tiny to fight. And that is exactly why small price increases are so dangerous, because they slip right under your radar while still hitting your wallet every single month. Your streaming service bumps the monthly cost by $2, your gym adds a mysterious facility fee, your phone bill jumps by $5 because of some adjustment nobody bothered to explain, and each time you shrug because arguing over a few dollars feels ridiculous. But here is where it gets crazy. None of these increases hurt enough on their own to make you cancel anything. Yet they all stack together in the background like quiet little money vampires. By the end of the month, you are paying $50 or $60 more than you used to without consciously approving any of it. And emotionally, this is the part that stings. Because you feel frustrated and overwhelmed by rising costs, but you also feel powerless to change anything. So you just keep paying as things slowly get more expensive. Is simple and brutal? The world raises prices in small doses because it knows you will not push back. And that is exactly why these tiny increases become one of the biggest financial leaks in your entire life. Point 5. You are funding inflation in real time. Inflation is not just making life more expensive, it is actively forcing you to overspend without even realizing it. And that is what makes it so dangerous, because the pain shows up long after the spending happens. You walk into the grocery store with the same list you have always had, and somehow the total jumps from what used to be $80 to well over $130. And at first you blame the store or the brand, or maybe you think you grabbed a couple of extra things, but then the same thing happens the next week and the week after that. Pretty soon you are spending hundreds more every month just to maintain the same lifestyle you had 2 years ago. And emotionally it hits you hard because it feels like you are doing something wrong, even though nothing changed except the price tags. Here's the part nobody really talks about. Inflation is a thief that works quietly in the background, but what makes it even worse is that most people keep spending the same way as if nothing happened. And that is inflation stealing from you. But the real danger is how easily you accept it by adjusting your habits without adjusting your strategy, leaving you stuck in a cycle where everyday life slowly drains your money while you blame yourself for feeling behind. Point 6. You think you are budgeting, but you are not. Most people genuinely believe they have a budget, but what they actually have is a rough awareness of their biggest bills, while everything else slips through the cracks. And that gap between what you think you spend and what you actually spend is where the danger hides. You know, your rent, your utilities, your insurance, maybe even your car payment down to the dollar. But the daily stuff, the insignificant stuff, that is the part you never track. The snacks, the quick lunches, the drinks after work, the random Target runs that always cost more than you expect, the subscription renewals you forgot existed, the parking fees, the impulse Amazon purchases that show up like surprise gifts from a past version of you with poor judgment. All of it blends into the background of your life, and because none of it feels big, none of it feels worth tracking. But emotionally, this is exactly why you keep telling yourself you should have more money than you do while having no idea where it all went. And here, as it stings a little, you cannot fix a financial leak you refuse to look at, and most people are not bad with money. They are just blind to the 100 tiny choices that quietly sabotage them every single month. Point 7. The slow creep of lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation is one of the sneakiest financial traps because it feels like progress, even though it quietly locks you into higher expenses with zero increase in real happiness. You get a raise, and instead of letting that extra money build your savings or investments, you automatically upgrade something in your life without even thinking about it. Maybe you move into a slightly nicer apartment, or you start eating out more often, or you buy better clothes, or you trade your perfectly fine car for a newer one with a payment that somehow feels justified because you earn more now. At first, all these upgrades feel deserved, like rewards for working hard. And honestly, they do make life feel a little nicer in the moment. But here is where it gets interesting. Every upgrade you make becomes your new baseline, and your brain adapts so fast that what once felt like a luxury now feels like a bare minimum requirement. Emotionally, this leaves you stuck in a loop where you work harder, make more, and somehow never feel richer because the gap between your lifestyle and your actual wealth keeps getting wider. And it is harsh, but true. If your lifestyle grows faster than your net worth, you are not rising. You are just drowning in nicer water. Point 8. Subscriptions are the new silent debt. Subscriptions are one of the most financially dangerous inventions of the modern world because they disguise long-term commitments as tiny decisions that feel too small to worry about, and that is exactly why they drain people without them ever noticing. You sign up for a streaming service because it is only $10 a month, then another because it has one show you wanted to watch, then a fitness app, then a meditation app, then cloud storage, then a couple of monthly productivity tools, and before you know it, you have 10 or 12 recurring charges silently firing off like little financial landmines every 30 days. None of them hurt individually, so you never feel compelled to cancel anything, especially because canceling forces you to admit you barely use half of what you are paying for. Emotionally, this is where subscriptions do the most damage because they make you feel like you are improving yourself or making life easier, when in reality, you are just locking yourself into a pile of micro expenses that grow into a giant monthly bill. And it is simple. Subscriptions are not one-time purchases. They are silent long-term debts disguised as convenience, and the moment you forget that is the moment they win. Point 9. You are paying extra for emotional relief. A lot of the small everyday purchases you make are not actually about the item itself. They are about the emotional relief you get from buying something, and that is exactly why these expenses are so dangerous. You get stressed at work, so you grab takeout on the way home because cooking feels like one responsibility too many. You have a rough day, so you order something online just to feel a little spark of excitement when the package arrives. You go out with friends even though you cannot really afford it because saying no feels like admitting you are falling behind. Every one of these decisions feels justified in the moment because the relief is real, even if it only lasts for 10 minutes. But here's where it gets interesting. The emotional comfort fades almost immediately while the financial cost sticks around for 30 days when your card statement arrives. And the worst part is that you tell yourself you are practicing self-care, even though the thing you are actually doing is using money to avoid discomfort. Emotionally, this feels soothing, but financially, it is a slow-motion disaster. And it hits hard. Retail therapy is the most expensive coping mechanism on the planet, and it works just well enough to keep you coming back while keeping you broke. Point 10. You underestimate the long-term impact of daily habits. People massively underestimate how much their tiny daily habits shape their financial future. And that is why everyday spending is so dangerous, because the impact is invisible until years have passed and the damage is already baked in. You overspend by $8 today because you are tired, then another $8 tomorrow because you are stressed, then another $8 the next day because you feel like you deserve something nice, and none of it feels like real money in the moment. But here is where the math gets ugly. $8 a day becomes almost $3,000 in a year. And if you keep that pattern going for a decade, you have thrown away nearly $30,000 without ever making a single big purchase. And it gets even crazier, because if you had invested that same money instead, the long-term growth would turn those tiny decisions into more than $100,000, which means your future self literally pays the price for every casual swipe you make today. Emotionally, it feels harmless because the amounts are small, but financially, every tiny choice compounds into something massive. And that is the punchline. Nothing you do is neutral. Every little habit is either quietly building your wealth or silently destroying it, and pretending the small stuff does not matter is exactly how people stay stuck forever. So here is the shift. Your money is not disappearing because of one big, bad decision. It is disappearing because you are living on autopilot in a world designed to make overspending feel normal. The danger is not the $10 you spent today or the $20 you spent yesterday. It is the fact that you do not notice the leak until your boat is sinking. The truth is, you do not need to make more money to feel financially secure. You do not need to get a massive raise. You do not need to win the lottery. You need awareness. You need honesty. You need to stop letting tiny expenses ruin your big goals. And you need to take back control from a system that profits every time you do not pay attention. If you change nothing else, change this. Start tracking every dollar. Start noticing the patterns. Start questioning whether something you buy daily is actually improving your life or just numbing your stress. Because at the end of the day, you do not need to look rich. You need to stop being stressed.